mourning the 12 people killed in the attack. Among them, several right-of-way agents and engineers in the Public Works and Public Utilities departments, an account clerk, an administrative assistant, and a civilian who was trying to file a permit. Police recovered 2 legally purchased handguns at the scene, one with a suppressor and several empty magazines. Investigators also found more weapons in the gunman's home, but what they've not been able to find is a motive.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich. President Trump is criticizing London's mayor right before he heads to the UK.
No, I don't think much of him. I think that he's the twin of de Blasio, except shorter.
Sadiq Khan recently said President Trump is not in the same class as his predecessors. Khan compared the president's initiatives to those of European dictators of the 1930s and 40s. Democratic presidential candidate Senator Kirsten Gillibrand participated in a Fox News town hall in Dubuque, Iowa. Moderator Chris Wallace asked about a tweet last December.
All right, but what do you mean first our future is female?
So what I mean by our future is female is that we want more women's voices heard. I was so inspired by the 2018 election. Those 120 women who ran in the red and purple places across the country broke through. Our first 2 Muslim American women, our first 2 Native American women, young women, diverse women. And so we want women to have a seat at the table.
What about men?
They're already there.
Gillibrand on Fox News. U.S. and Mexican officials begin talks Monday to avoid tariffs on Mexican imports. President Trump threatened to impose 5% tariffs if Mexico does not take action to curb illegal immigration. Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney said on Fox News Sunday the president is deadly serious. This is Fox News.
Hey, it's Mom. Somebody forgot to thaw the chicken, so meet us at Chili's for 2 for $25. Oh, and congratulate your sister for making the basketball team. She's thrilled. Love you. See you at Chili's.
Enjoy 2 full meal combos for $25. An appetizer, 2 mouth-watering entrees like our crispy chicken breast, smoked barbecue quarter leg, or smoked jalapeno cheddar sausage. Served with corn on the cob and french fries. 2 bold combos for $25. A full-on meal deal available nightly for a limited time. Together, we Chili's.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walked in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
A cruise ship crashes in Venice.
The owners of MSC Cruises say it was a mechanical problem that led to the crash of their vessel, the MSC Opera, into a riverboat in Venice, Italy. 4 people were injured, one of them an American tourist, when they tried to outrun the out-of-control cruise ship and the tourist boat, the River Countess. Witnesses on shore said they heard the warning siren, signaling that something was about to happen. 2 tugboats tried to stop the 900-foot-long Opera, but their tow cables snapped. The collision happening about 8:30 Sunday morning Venice time on the Giudecca Canal, a major thoroughfare in the historic city. The crash renewing calls to ban cruise ships in Venice altogether. Karen McHugh, Fox News.
A bizarre encounter between a former educator and police. The Miami Herald reports the 81-year-old former Miami-Dade school board member shot at officers during a chase before crashing his car. The man is also charged with pointing a gun at a woman and shooting at a man's car after an argument in a mall parking lot. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, reigns supreme at the weekend box office.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters, outdid Rocketman, Aladdin, and Ma. Godzilla was #1.
This is Godzilla's world. We just live in it.
Damn right. The movie's total of $49 million was 10 to 15 million off industry expectations. Aladdin slipped to second with $42 million. Rocketman, starring Taron Egerton as Elton John, opened third with $25 million.
I could hear the whole tune in my head. It was all there. I could see all the notes, and I just had to get it out.
It's a little bit funny.
The movie thriller Ma, with actress Octavia Spencer, made $18 million on a $5 million budget. Debbie Hanley, Fox News.
Texas is banning red light traffic cameras. The law also prevents counties and Texas officials from refusing to register a vehicle for unpaid red light camera tickets. Drivers busted by the cameras were usually fined $75. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Join Ray Gibson as he celebrates 40 years on the air.
Can you dig it?
40 years already? Hi, I'm doing the big broadcast from BMW's brand new showroom at Control, and I want you to join in on the fun. Come on by and see us do the show live and in person. And since it's a party, we've got all kinds of super goodies to give away. United Airlines is letting me give away 2 tickets to Japan. And your next trip to the Philippines, we've got your hotel accommodations covered with goodies from Resort World Manila.
Mabuhay.
It's been a great ride, and this is a great excuse to get caught up with some of our favorite guests and friends of the show.
Ray! Good morning, Ray.
I always want to tell the truth. When I can, I tell the truth. I do try. Yo, Ray.
Tune in Friday, June 7th, or check out the Points Facebook live feed, provided and produced by Shooting Star Productions.
Ray Gibson's 40th anniversary show is brought to you by AK BMW and Shooting Star Productions, with special thanks to United Airlines, Resorts World Manila, Nanbo's Insurance, and GPSI.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You all know that by now. You know that we start the program that way every day. I start the program that way every day. I put a certain value on the Bill of Rights. Living in a country that secures and protects the rights of the individual. And that's one of the reasons that I start out with the Second Amendment every day. Sometimes I have a little anecdote that I go into about the Second Amendment. Today doesn't happen to be one of those days. So we're going to go straight from here to... Very good, Real Joe Cruz. Zemi Ikotny. Zemi Ikotny, my backwards bilingual play on words. Translated directly from Chamorro to English, it means press the meat. But like everything else, I turn it around and work at it from the back, and it becomes meet the press. So this is our daily equivalent of that NBC program called Meet the Press. One big difference, though. It's a lot better. And what I do is I take the 2 editorials, one from each of the papers, and go through them with my blue pencil. And I look for the usage and grammar of Ifino English. I mark it up and I tell them. And when I'm finished doing that, I will analyze the 2 editorials and tell the respective editorial boardrooms which of the 2 was the better. And when I do that, if you're in Tamuning, you'll be able to hear the champagne corks popping in the boardroom at the Guam Daily Post. If you happen to be in the Agani area, down in what we used to call the Daily News Building, I don't know what we call it anymore, but if you're in that area, you might very well be able to hear the champagne corks popping in the editorial boardroom of the Daily News. That doesn't happen very often, though. Your better bet, if you want to hear popping corks, you're better off in Tamuning than Agana. Daily News doesn't write that many of its own editorials anymore. They would much rather run hard left stuff from Gannett News Service and Gannett editorials, etc. The Post, on the other hand, does a pretty good job of home cooking. So if you read a Post editorial, you pretty well figure it's made with local ingredients. It's not something that came in over some wire from the nation's capital. Today is no exception. Here's the Daily News editorial. Another view. A.G. Barr's spinoff. We should have heard from Mueller first. Yeah, at least they spelled it right. Mueller, right? But I don't think we need to spend any time on this at all. You know, we know about Barr, we know about Mueller. We know how the Gannett folks really love to bash our president, Donald Trump, for just about anything. I haven't read to the end of this. Let me see how long it takes them to get to Trump in this one. Well, anyhow, it's all not as it's not all is not lost for the Daily News today, even though their editorial is out of the running before it even starts. Because fortunately for the Daily News, they do run letters to the editor. And oftentimes the letters to the editor are better than the editorials. Of course, the letters to the editor usually come from folks right here on Guam. And oftentimes they write about things that are happening right here on Guam. And very often the things that those local folks about what's going on right here on Guam are of interest to people who live right here on Guam. Today is no exception. I don't know what I would have to do to get that message through to the Daily News. But, well, I'll keep trying. I don't give up easy. So today's letter to the editor is from what the morning show, the kickoff show here on The Point, the Ray Gibson show, would refer to as the other Governor Leon Guerrero, also known as Ken Leon Guerrero, who is a local observer of government. What is that you're always saying about active and informed citizenship, Real Joe Cruz?
It's not just a right, it's a duty.
But what's just not just a right? Can you say the whole thing for me?
Hold on, sir.
Yeah, the show starts at 4, Real Joe Cruz. Not a surprise. Yeah, well, what the Real Joe Cruz was going to say is that an active and informed citizenship is not just a right, it's a duty. And those are the immortal words of a certain Ronald Reagan. And Ken certainly lives up to the command of Ronald Reagan. He is an active and informed citizen, and he shares his information very generously. Here's his letter to the editor. I do not know Ricky Sanchez, nor do I want to know him. Whoa! He doesn't even want to know Ricky Sanchez. His actions assisting the importation of methamphetamine, using his position as a government employee and a particular government employee working at the Department of Homeland Security and their offices severely undermine the faith and confidence the people have in our government and law enforcement officials. True enough. The confidence was further shaken when it was revealed that the island's former head of the Department of Homeland Security, a certain Charles Esteves, the current chief of police, Steve Ignacio, the current chief of staff of the governor, Tony Babauta, and the mayors of 2 villages bearing the brunt of the ravages of the current meth epidemic, Kevin Susuico from Agate and Melissa Savaris of Dededo, and a host of other politicians also wrote letters of support requesting leniency. Their pleas for leniency of a person who willfully used his position of power and trust to enrich himself at the cost of the future of hundreds of families that suffer the impacts of meth addiction daily, gut the credibility of law enforcement's effort to stop this plague on our people. Almost daily, the news media covers some story of burglary, robbery, or personal violence caused in part by meth addiction. The other day, a story documented nearly 3 pounds of meth sent through the mails to Molesu over the past few weeks. 8 printed other news stories detailing meth smuggling and meth-induced violence on our island. On the same page of the PDN as the story of Sanchez and his politically well-connected supporters asking for leniency is a story of 2 women dealing meth in the village of Humatak, which emphasizes the very point I'm making by petitioning for a strong sentence for Sanchez. All the letters that ask mercy on behalf of his family ignore the impact his actions had on the community. What mercy did he or any other drug dealers involved show for the families now destroyed as a result of methamphetamine addiction? What act of contrition did Sanchez do to help restore the shattered confidence of the people and their law enforcement agencies and personnel? What amends has Sanchez made to those families shattered by meth addiction of one or more family members? Why don't the letters comment about the destruction of the, quote, public peace and order brought about by the actions of Sanchez and people like him? We all know Sanchez is sorry. Sorry he got caught. Yeah. The public confidence in the law enforcement system, as we citizens counted on to keep us safe, has been shattered by the actions of Sanchez. After all, Sanchez was one of the people we counted on to keep drugs out of our community, to keep our children safe. The feeling of safety is further shattered by the long line of government officials and politicians we are also counting on to keep the public safe, begging for money on his behalf, as you were begging for mercy on his behalf, with little to no regard to the impact his actions have on the destruction of our ability as residents to feel safe in our homes. The current meth epidemic is expanding, and drug users are getting more violent as we see the reports of home invasions growing, causing many in our community to consider arming themselves, myself included, to begin the process of restoring confidence in the ability of our law enforcement agencies to protect communities and children. We are asking you to send a message to those contemplating the thug life. When you get caught, you will be punished to the fullest possible extent under the law. So I'm going to stop right here and do something that's unprecedented. Here it is. Can I have a drum roll, please? Only the third person in history to achieve the coveted Blue Star. Yeah, so let me just work with this a little bit here. Let's go in with Ricky Sanchez. As I recall the stories, Ricky Sanchez made a deal to pick up some mail, and the deal was, you pick up that mail for us, and we'll give you $1,000. And he knew what he was picking up. He knew he was assisting in the smuggling of methamphetamine. And I think he did it twice. I think he got caught the second time, causing me to feel it's unfortunate that we demonetized silver back in about 1967. Up until that time, if you had a quarter, it was made out of like 95% pure silver. Now it's a piece of copper with some plating on it or something like that. But if we hadn't demonetized silver, it would have come in really handy for the likes of Ricky Sanchez. You know, there are times when 30 pieces of silver really come in handy. Yeah, and this is one of those times. You're going to betray everybody for $1,000. Yeah. And the second thing, I don't know Ricky Sanchez either, and I suspect I probably never will know Ricky Sanchez. But let's just assume, for the purpose of discussion, he is a really, really nice guy. And let's assume, for the purpose of discussion, that he has a wife and a family and a mortgage, right? And bills to pay. Aren't those good reasons to say, well, Ricky, if you're really sorry and you learned your lesson, then we'll go easy on you, maybe a little probation or something like that. Would that be okay? What do you think, Real Joe Cruz? He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Isn't that kind of how we've gotten to where we are right now?
Yep.
We see people doing these things that are really injurious to other people and to the whole community. Well, yeah, I know the guy. Well, what difference does it make if you know him or not? You know, if he's done something really bad, whether you know him or not, doesn't matter. If he's a really nice guy or not, well, maybe he'll make friends in prison.
True, sir.
But that can't be the touchstone upon which these decisions turn. So when you see people like these two mayors writing letters, oh, give him a break. He was sorry. He knows he did wrong, etc. The governor's chief of staff. And we talk a lot about, oh, meth is really serious. We've got to do something about the meth epidemic in our community here. It's a really, really serious problem, and we all got to work together. And then we see something like this. If this is the mentality in the community, and these people are supposed to be what others would refer to as community leaders, and our community leaders don't have the backbone to write to the judge and say, lock this guy up and throw the key away. That's what the people in my village at Dadido, want you to do. Or lock this gentleman up and lock him up so tight that you're going to have to pipe sunlight to him. That's what the folks down in Agate want you to do, Judge. If we could develop that mentality, then maybe we'd be getting somewhere on the meth epidemic. But if we continue to do this, if we do, then the conscientious meth dealer is going to say, I'm going to start dealing meth, but before I do, I'm going to go out and get about 20 people signed up for when I get caught to write really nice letters to the judge. You know, I'm going to impress them with my charming personality so that when push comes to shove, they'll be there to write really nice letters for me. So we're not going to make it this way. It's going to get worse and worse. And I can't let this go. You know, if Ricky had done something really serious, you know, like skip school for one day, these people would be not coming out and saying, oh, let him go. They'd be saying, throw the book at him, kick him out of the National Honor Society. And by the same token, two people were caught red-handed importing methamphetamine and marijuana into our island. They were arrested. They went to court. They pled guilty. But they were released. They were ROR'd, or maybe released on a small bail, so they could go down to Mount Carmel School and act as role models for the children down there. Because Yvonne Elliman is a really good singer. So if you're a really good singer, it's okay. We'll let you out. We'll let you go down and sing down at Mount Carmel, and then we won't do to you what we would do to so many people. We're not going to sentence you to a year or two at the Guam Penitentiary, or maybe more, and some parole. We're going to send you back to Hawaii, and we'll let you do a couple weeks in Hawaii, if that even happened, and then we'll let you go on parole, and, you know, everything's okay. So if you are a person who is tempted to pick up a little extra money dealing methamphetamine, what message do you pick up from all of these people who are known in the community? Mayors, chiefs of staff, judges, you know, just patting these folks on the head. Yeah, well, you know, I know you're sorry, and I know you're really a good guy. And contrary to what some people think, I don't think it's a political connectedness that causes these letters to be written. I think it's this desire to be engage in virtue signaling. See, I'm for this guy. I'm a kind person, and I know he has a family, and I don't want to see his family suffer, and I know he's got a mortgage payment, etc. Anyhow, congratulations, Ken. You won the coveted Blue Star.
I am humbled and honored.
If as soon as this gets out, I wouldn't be surprised if the Daily News made you a job offer, because you did something that they are only rarely able to accomplish.
Well, I appreciate the thought. I won't hold my breath, but I do appreciate the thought. As you were talking about this, there was something. The reason I wrote this letter is because of the destruction their actions inflict upon our community beyond the initial sin. Now, the initial sin was bringing in methamphetamine, which has damaged hundreds of families, caused thousands of crimes to be committed, has driven an escalation to the point now where criminals are driving around trying to find homes they can invade. So we're no longer safe in our homes as a result of this. And to have high-placed officials. Now, bear in mind, these letters were written in 2017. Well, guess what? When they got in office, they could have said, hey, I guess he has his federal defender. They could have called him up and said, that letter I wrote a year and a half ago, pull it. I'm the chief of police now. It's not going to look good for the chief of police to be sent, begging for mercy for a drug dealer who was a law enforcement officer.
Would it look good, Ken? Would it look good even for just a garden variety beat cop to do the same thing?
Absolutely not, and I'll tell you why. Today, as you can imagine, I've been getting a lot of comments from people everywhere I've been going, and I've been trying to get more people to write letters. I've been telling them we need to outweigh the politicians and the well-connected. We need to have lots of letters from ordinary people saying, hey, we live in this community and we don't want to see this type of behavior go on. And the guy just knocked me dead. He told me, Mr. LG, don't you realize what's happening here? You're upsetting powerful people. They could have the police pull you over and put some meth in your car, and then they can tarnish your reputation and, hold you up and say, hey, you want severe punishment, we're going to give you severe punishment. You see, this is what ordinary people are thinking. Ordinary people are now thinking that the hardworking men and women who put their lives at risk every day to protect us are corrupt. And that offends me. That offends me. Because I know a lot of these people. I see what they go through on a daily basis. And the fact that we have all these people now looking at all law enforcement officers as being potentially corrupt, that is the most damage we could have. I wouldn't be surprised to see gun sales double or triple over the next few months. I mean, when somebody like me, who is a strong gun control advocate, but in the face of the school shootings last week and the workplace shooting, I'm thinking about getting a gun. That shows how unsafe our communities have become. And it all goes to the actions of someone like Ricky Sanchez, who's in a position of power and trust. We expect him to defend our homes and families and children, but instead he's the one that's bringing it in. And then we have all these politicians and the chief of police, the former head of Homeland Security, village mayors, all lockstep singing his praises that he should be treated leniently. And yet, in the meantime, you look at all the people who've been affected, had families torn apart and destroyed, first by a family member becoming addicted and then, ripping off everybody in the family, and then when there's nothing left to rip off, they go out and start ripping off the neighbors, and the circle of crime starts to expand. And as these circles start overlapping, we see the crime rate skyrocketing at a time when the police department is understaffed, undermanned, and underfunded and under-equipped to deal with it. And then we have all these politicians coming to the rescue of poor Ricky. What about the hundreds of families that are in pain right now? Those are the people I feel for. Those are the people that the judge should be representing and listening to, not these politicians, because they're suspect. I mean, why would a politician put his name on the line for somebody that violated a position of trust and authority? And bear in mind, police officers or people in law enforcement are held to a higher standard because they are the ones that know the system. The fact he's having drugs sent to Homeland Security, it's an attempt to minimize the chances of it being intercepted.
All good points, Ken. All good points. So I'm going to sum up here, and that is on this point, and say that if the community doesn't condemn it, then the community is, in effect, by default, condoning it. And that's bad. But when you have Ken Siswico and Melissa Savares right down there at the mayor level actually participating in it, that's almost like praising it. And it's going to be very difficult. You know, the old just say no, tell your kids to just say no to drugs unless...
Well, what is it? Yeah, I mean, what does it say about all of the effort and the time and money that we have put into fighting the drug epidemic here on the island, when now even the people suspect all the cops of being corrupt and involved in the drug situation? That little incident today was why I originally wrote the letter. You know, I mean, this happened later was I'm trying to get more people to write letters, but the fact that people in the community actually think that and feel that says bad things about Guam from a political point of view. First of all, we have people afraid to speak up and afraid to write letters because they're worried that they might get fired, their children might get fired, or relatives might get fired, and they can't afford to lose their jobs. That's normal, unfortunately, you know. But now when we have people actually believing...
Gotta go, Ken. I'm up against a break here.
All right.
But you made good points, and once again, congratulations on winning the coveted Blue Star.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor I will treasure.
So long, Ken.
Bye.
Ready to buy real estate on Guam? Congratulations! But what now? There's so many questions, so many things to do. Where do you start? The best place to start is to call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty, Guam's biggest name in real estate. They aren't the best because they're the biggest. They're the biggest because they're the best. Trust the name. Find out why. Call Century 21 Commonwealth Realty today. 888-2121. Trust the best.
In illness and in wellness, Calvo's Select Care is health care that is there for you. That's why over 80% of the Guam medical community places their trust and insures with us. We offer our members wellness and fitness programs for a healthier lifestyle and provide a comprehensive medical network on and off island to help members from unexpected illnesses. Contact Calvo's Select Care today for more information.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So here we are back to Demi Codney, and you saw a little history being made right here on Tall Tales when Ken Leon Guerrero got a Blue Star. That's probably, as I mentioned, it's probably as close as the Daily News gets most of the time to a Blue Star. They publish a letter to the editor that's well written, has impact, it's something we can get our teeth into, and if it had been written by one of the members of the editorial board, could have been an editorial itself. But that's probably harder than running some left-wing stuff from Gannett. Okay, on to the Post. Here's what the Post is harping on today. Officials must follow through on plans to alleviate homelessness. Many of us can't help but see new faces on street corners as more men, women, and even children hold up signs asking for money. While homelessness and panhandling are separate issues, we do know that some of those who beg for money have no shelter or substandard shelter. Preliminary data showed 873 homeless people on island, according to Guam's 2019 point-in-time homeless count. That's lower than 2015's 1,200. So this number is alarming because it breaks from the downward trend we're seeing. So we had 2015, 1,280, 2016, 972, 2017, 852, 2018, 854. So 2 more people moved out on the street corner, increasing the count by 2. In light of such numbers, we are glad that island officials are looking to other jurisdictions for possible ways to manage the problem. Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, Gura Executive Director Raymond Tapasnia, and Adelup Chief of Staff Tony Babauta recently met with state and federal officials in Honolulu to learn about the programs in Hawaii. Yeah, there's nothing like 3 junkets to solve a local problem. That'll do it just like that. Too bad we couldn't have had more folks on the government payroll going on that junket to Honolulu. In the Aloha State, Tenorio and Tapasnia joined Hawaii Lieutenant Governor Josh Green for a series of meetings and tours of homeless camps and innovative affordable housing models, Gura stated in a news release. Hawaii has devised a 10-point plan to deal with its chronic homeless problem, which includes lift zones. Now, what do you suppose a lift zone is, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure, sir.
Yeah, you have any idea?
No, I don't.
Yeah, well, you know, in some countries, probably most English-speaking countries except the United States, if you're on the ground floor and you want to go to the 20th floor, you know how you get there?
You take the lift?
You take the lift.
Ah, I see.
You never take the elevator. If you ask for the elevator, nobody know what you were talking about.
Okay.
So I don't know. Maybe that's what they've got there. Maybe they've got a series of lifts that they put homeless folks into and elevate their status. Transitional shelters, medical treatment, joint outreach centers, and low-income housing. Hawaii's plan is making a dent in the problem, and we get some more numbers here. There was a 42% decrease in the homeless count. So it went from 4,495 to 4,453. So they went from really horrible to just horrible, and that's quite an improvement. Tenorio said one of the takeaways is the innovative affordable housing model homes at Kahuaki Village. The village provides affordable long-term housing for homeless families. We hope to see Guam officials follow through on plans here to help homeless individuals and families. In December 2017, the Calvo administration announced its plan for an overnight homeless shelter as a short-term solution. This shelter would provide men, women, and children an overnight shelter somewhere safe, clean, and dry for the night. We hope to see Guam open an overnight homeless shelter because it could make the difference between a short period of homelessness and a debilitating fall into chronic homelessness. We recognize that the homeless problem is complex because many affected individuals contend with medical, mental, and substance abuse issues. But we urge the government of Guam to follow through on plans for more affordable housing and an overnight shelter to help alleviate the problem. It's one thing to announce plans to help the homeless and take junkets to Honolulu. I just ad-libbed that, Joe. Real Joe Cruz. It's another to follow through on plans to open doors to safer homes and more stable futures. I don't think that we gather the right kind of information to deal with our so-called homeless problem. I've done a fair amount of reading about homelessness, and I understand that there are some people that, if offered a clean, dry, safe place to stay, don't want it. They want to stay out on the street, and they want the carefree atmosphere of living on the street provides. But I'd like to know, if we're going to do surveys, I'd like to develop some data as to why people are homeless. Now, I have a feeling, and it's not much more than that, a speculation, that very few of the homeless are there because they ran into hard times. You know, you had a wife and a couple of kids and some car payments and affordable rent, and then all of a sudden something bad happened, and they just couldn't afford the rent. So they had to move out of their house, and they had to move out on the street. I have a feeling that almost never happens. But it's not the kind of thing we should speculate about, because the way to deal with that is a whole lot different than dealing with someone who take whatever money he gets, uses it to buy drugs, and doesn't care where he sleeps so long as he's got his drugs. I'm sorry, I said he. Wow, can we go back and erase the tape, Real Joe Cruz?
You got it, sir.
Yeah. And somebody who doesn't care where they sleep, just so long as they've got enough money to buy drugs, they don't care. And you could give them a place to sleep and it wouldn't matter. So what percentage of our homeless fit into that category? What percentage of our homeless fit into the category of people who have some sort of a disability, whether it's physical or mental, and they've never been able to hold down the kind of job that would be necessary for them to provide for their own support? How many of the homeless are people who have come from, who are habitual residents, who have migrated here from the freely associated states and figure that sleeping in a bus stop is a whole lot better than what they had in truck? I mean, chook. So if we're going to be moaning and groaning about homelessness and taking junkets and everything, why don't we find out what exactly the problems are, instead of saying, oh, the homeless, we've got to help the homeless. Let me try that. Let me try my hand at virtue signaling here, Real Joe Cruz. You know, there are homeless people on our island. We should all feel bad for the homeless who don't have a safe place to live. I'm all for doing everything that we can to help the homeless. I hope you are too. Okay, that's it. It doesn't come natural. I have to kind of act in order to do it.
Oh, it was perfect, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. I imagine the Facebook is going to burn up now. Whatever happened to Tall Tales? Is Tall Tales now become the soapbox for folks who want to engage in virtue signaling? Anyhow, so much for the Post. You got to do more than put ink on paper and call it an editorial to get the blue star. And I'm afraid today, as Charlie told Terry Malloy when Terry Malloy had to take a dive against Wilson, this ain't your night, kid. You know, this ain't your night, Post. You're one more like this and you're going to be taking a one-way train to Palookaville. Okay, here's Michael. Hello, Michael.
Yes, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
I actually woke up this morning going, when is this guy going to talk about the homeless? Housing.
Here I am.
I mean, I want to talk to you every day. The one that I'm in, I'm amazed at how many people don't belong there. I don't go looking for this, never did. But suddenly I'll have somebody in a conversation ask me where I live, and I tell them. Now I'm standing at a retail store. So you would not think that this person would chime into, oh, yes, we live there too. And I'm like, how in God's name do you live there? I mean, I had to lose my company, go down to the ground. I'm a military vet from Vietnam. And I had to lose absolutely everything to where Social Security was $300 a month for me. And the only reason they gave me only $300 is because they knew that the veterans would pitch in and give me money. It doesn't really matter how much they give me. They always give me just enough to survive, just barely enough to survive. So I've had to work my way through this system. I came here and I was appalled. And the fact that I had this one lady go, I'm sorry, I'm not here to help you find housing on Guam. Oh, okay, thank you. Goodbye. See you later. So I finally ran into this one guy that said, what have you done? And I said, well, I filled out applications, and I filled out application at a particular place here in Guam. And he says, wow, that's the best place, brand new. He said, you're on the right track. And now I'm on the verge of getting put out of this place because I have too much income. And I'm like, what?
Too much income, Michael?
Yeah, too much income.
At $300 a month?
No. I mean, the military gives you different awards for different things. And it just so happens that one of the awards I have is housebound. And housebound is additional money or money that takes care of a situation that I'm in. But it's a monetary amount because with that amount I'm supposed to, buy help. And I'll tell you right now, the money they give you is not enough for help, but it's just enough to shove me over the amount. And that's because they already know the amount that I get. There's an ad. When I was in San Diego looking for help, and I would tell them here, this, that, go through my whole story. And as soon as I mentioned the VA, they'd immediately pull the paperwork and say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. And I'm like, what? Next. So I kept going around, and finally I asked one woman, I said, why can't I get help here in San Diego? The most expensive place I've ever lived in my life. I'm living here because the climate suits my needs, my health condition. And she said, well, that's because the veterans are supposed to be paid for their situation. And I'm like, well, that's certainly not me. But none of the programs that I went to would actually help me because they're assuming that the VA is taking care of us. They're not.
So, Michael, you are one of those unfortunates then who wound up homeless because a series of catastrophic events then, is that correct?
Yes. I'm not actually there, but this is my month where I get my review.
Uh-huh.
And if the dollars, and I already did the math, if they overlook the math, fine. They need to overlook the math because the math is, I have people that live near me that have jobs, it's like, I don't even understand why these people are living here. I have one neighbor that's like, they have a different car in their driveway the other day because they're running a car rental business. How do you do that? There's cabs parked all over the complex. So how do you own cabs and live here?
So these are the people you say that are in the housing for the homeless, quote unquote, that don't belong there.
Somebody's doing an awful lot, unless now I can't say too much because I really know how housing works. If I want to build a big building, I will get a percentage of my property to house people that need help. Okay. And the rest I can just go ahead and rent to. So I'm not really sure what this project, how it works. But I know if you're building a high rise, that if you put a certain percentage of people in, you get discounts for your financing for building your project. So whether this is one of those situations where, well, of course, the person next door works because he's not, he's paying a different amount than you are. And I do know it's prorated per your situation. I just happen to fall in. The other thing that I fall into is that I've never been one to roll over and let the military tell me no. They are very good at no. I have several no's that irritate me in the fact that I have neuropathy. Oh, no, you took this medication. The medication caused the neuropathy. No, my nurse told me I had neuropathy before. Well, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that benefit.
So to kind of sum up here then, Michael, your situation, you said you had a business and you lost your business?
I had this third largest telecommunications company in Denver, Colorado.
Uh-huh.
But as a sole proprietor, when you go down, you can only guess what goes down with you.
Yeah.
Everything.
So your company went down, and your major problem then is the bureaucracy, primarily the Veterans Administration, correct?
Yes. Yes, it irritates me every day when I hear, the veterans, a few people on, that I've heard lately on TV saying, we're taking care of our vets. Now, the other thing that's going on is I'm not post 9/11. And I'm like, what magic happened in 9/11? Well, we have a lot of vets coming back that are in need, and it's like, what, you forgot about Vietnam?
Hey, Michael, it's very interesting. I got a break coming up here, so I'm going to have to thank you for calling, but given your urging, I'm going to try to touch on the homeless more often and invite you to call back, okay?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll know more at the end of this month when I get my new rating for this place, whether I'm here, there, or on the street.
Okay. Give us a buzz. Thank you, Michael.
Bye.
Okay. Short break.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
We know too well the inconvenience of not having power after a storm. You worry about the food in the freezer going bad. Nights get hot. It's hard finding comfort when going to sleep. These are realities. But with solar and battery storage from Micronesia Renewable Energy, these realities can be a thing of the past. The solar works during the day and the batteries power your home at night. Call 632-2613 to see how solar plus battery storage can make life a little more convenient. MRE, the smarter choice.
So here we are back. We got about 6 minutes to go before that big halftime show we have every day. After the halftime show, I'll get into the card. This is what I've got on the card today. Banks versus marijuana. First item. Second item, banks versus cannabis. Third item, financial institutions versus bank. No, not really. Second item on the card is GPA versus the cat. And then I got CCU versus the rules. And then I've got Dumb and Dumber versus CCU. Then I've got Joey versus the ratepayers. Clint versus Halloween. Tall Tales versus CCU. I'll tell you what, the Consolidated Commission on Utilities ought to change its name to the Talk Show Host Full Employment Act of 2019. They never run out of things to give me to talk about. And then I've also got an item here about the minimum wage versus poor folks, if we get that far. But I thought between now and the halftime show, I'd just take a peek at some of the Facebook comments. I think the Facebook comments sometimes are a little bit more poignant when they come right after the dialogue that they reflect. So let's see what people were saying about the homelessness here. Nate horns in talking about Ricky Sanchez, and he said he was an expert in security, but using it to his advantage. Should be even stricter sentencing. And James Howard, how can they get away with this double standard, Judge? What can we do? Well, Ken sounded the call to action, James Howard, and that is when these people come up for sentencing, write a letter to the judge. Pretend that you're a member of the Manakilu in our community and write a letter to the judge. And then when you see people like these two village mayors and the chief of staff do this, tell them, hey, I didn't appreciate that. If you live in Dado, Mayor Savaris, I didn't appreciate what you did. I want Dado to be a drug-free community, and I don't think we're going to get there if you soft pedal the sentencing aspect of drug crimes. Okay, then let's see. We've got James Howard, and James Howard says cannabis is innocent until proven guilty. Yeah, I don't know that cannabis has ever been on trial, so you're probably right. And James says Clint is the one that will protect the community from cannabis. Yeah. Mingo Ree, UOG does the homeless survey every year. I'm sure they have data to show reasons why they are homeless. All caps. The data is there. Well, Mingo, I hate to disagree with you, but the data isn't there. And it isn't the UOG that does that homeless survey every year. I know a person who participates in that survey every year, and it's not a UOG-sponsored function. And I know the questions that are asked, and they're not the questions that I just posed, which, in my humble estimation, are the kind of answers that we're going to need if we use the whole homeless dimension for something other than virtue signaling. J. Edmund Santana, Guam banks not accepting business from future marijuana businesses will leave them high and dry. Yeah, I'm going to get to that on the card. Let's see if there's anything else here that deals with what we talked about. Joe Cruz. Now, this isn't you, real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe Cruz. Said, award the chocolate starfish, Bob. The chocolate starfish. Wow. I'm kind of a chocolate man, chocolate-oholic, right? If I had any chocolate starfish around here in the studio, they wouldn't last long, I'll tell you that. James Howard comes in with his usual encouragement for one of the newspapers. James Howard says, PDN, boo. James Howard, a little praise for the talk show host here. Judge Bob is the CCU equalizer, also known as the Salty Grandmaster Supreme Leader. Wow, I wonder if I could have some business cards printed up that said that. Okay, so I managed to run the clock out right on down to the halftime show. Big halftime show. Enjoy. We'll be back right after the halftime show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Gun control debate on Richard Jordan, Fox News. Hundreds of people attended a vigil for the victims of the Virginia Beach shooting Sunday night. Police are still investigating to determine why a city employee opened fire last week, killing 12 people inside a government building. Colorado Senator and 2020 Democratic hopeful Michael Bennet says Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell needs to step up when it comes to gun control measures.
My hope is that if McConnell does not take this up on the floor, that the American people and the people of Kentucky will hold him accountable for that, and that we can actually put leadership in the Senate and the White House that will do something about this.
Bennett on ABC's This Week. U.S. and Mexican officials are scheduled to begin meeting today to avert tariffs on Mexican imports. President Trump vowed to implement a 5% tariff on Mexican goods if Mexico doesn't do more to stop migrants crossing illegally into the U.S. Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney on Fox News Sunday.
He's absolutely deadly serious. In fact, I fully expect these tariffs to go on to at least the 5% level on June 10th. The president is deadly serious about fixing the situation at the southern border.
The Mexican president has hinted that his country could step up its immigration controls. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the U.S. is willing to talk with Iran with no preconditions. Tensions continue to escalate between the two countries. Pompeo added that sanctions will remain in effect. President Trump declared a major disaster in 3 Oklahoma counties that have been devastated by flooding, tornadoes, and other severe storms. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt says the state will request that additional counties be added to that declaration. Some people living near the Arkansas River have been ordered to evacuate.
We've been packing for the last few days, so today, after they put the actual evacuation letter out, we just decided to get the U-Haul so we can get all the big stuff.
The Arkansas River is expected to reach a point where it backs up the storm drains. This is Fox News.
The sky's the limit with Bank Pacific's secure MyCloud banking. You can access your account 24/7 with your smartphone, your computer, your iPad, or any other tablet. You can pay bills, set up alerts, check your balances, wire transfer money. It's never been easier. Enroll online or come on in and see one of our friendly staff. Digital Life, Digital Solutions. Bank Pacific.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Viva Bank Pacific.
Business travel just got easier. Take your data plan with you for only $10 a day to all 17 Data2Go destinations. Never worry about additional data roaming charges when you go where your business needs you. The US, China, Thailand, and so much more. Have the assurance you need to check emails, surf the web, and stay connected. Call 688-2677 today to make sure your account is Data2Go ready. Docomo Pacific. Better together.
The former special counsel Robert Mueller says he hopes he won't have to testify before Congress, but some Democrats still say a subpoena is possible.
House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler is still weighing whether to compel Mueller to appear as Democratic-led investigations continue. But GOP committee member Doug Collins said exclusively on Fox News Sunday he believes there is a specific reason Mueller would prefer not to testify.
Because he's going to get real questions about how the investigation was done, where it started, how it became, and why they sort of picked and choose, it seems, in the report, how this actually got going.
Collins says he expects the legal call from Mueller because Chairman Nadler seems, in Collins' words, willing to subpoena anything that moves. President Trump and other Republicans have declared the Russia matter closed. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Kevin Spacey's lawyers are going back to court today in the actor's sexual misconduct case. The judge has ordered a Nantucket establishment to turn over surveillance footage from the night in question. Spacey's attorney accused the former busboy of deleting text messages that support Spacey's claims of innocence. A civil rights icon who fought segregation through her restaurant business has died.
Leah Chase was never shy about challenging the status quo in the South. The legendary New Orleans chef was the first in the city to open a white tablecloth restaurant for black people called Dookie Chase's. She fed activists from Martin Luther King Jr. to Thurgood Marshall at the height of the civil rights movement, even sending food to jailed activists. Chase was always seen at her restaurant right until the very end, using a walker to make her way around the establishment, talking to patrons. Chase was 96 years old. Ken Duffy, Fox News.
This is Godzilla's world. We just live in it.
Godzilla, King of Monsters, captured the attention of moviegoers. The film came out on top at the weekend box office with $49 million in ticket sales. Aladdin slid to second. I'm Richard Jordan, and this is Fox News.
Join Ray Gibson as he celebrates 40 years on the air.
40 years already? Hi, I'm doing the big broadcast from BMW's brand new showroom at Atkins Kroll, and I want you to join in on the fun. Come on by and see us do the show live and in person. And since it's a party, we've got all kinds of super goodies to give away. United Airlines is letting me give away 2 tickets to Japan. And your next trip to the Philippines, we've got your hotel accommodations covered with goodies from Resort World Manila.
Mabuhay.
It's been a great ride, and this is a great excuse to get caught up with some of our favorite guests and friends of the show.
Ray! Good morning, Ray.
I always want to tell the truth. When I can, I tell the truth. I do try. Yo, Ray.
Tune in Friday, June 7th, or check out the Points Facebook live feed, provided and produced by Shooting Star Production.
Ray Gibson's 40th anniversary show is brought to you by AK BMW and Shooting Star Productions, with special thanks to United Airlines, Resorts World Manila, Nanbo's Insurance, and GPSI.
Well, another gigantic halftime show here today, which everyone, I'm sure, really enjoyed. I certainly did. And we start the card. First item on the card, banks versus marijuana. And then I've got several cases, or several bouts dealing with the CCU and GPA, et cetera, all the way down to the minimum wage. So there's a story in the Post that says Guam banks can't take cannabis cash. Do you suppose that means they can't take marijuana cash also? Probably does, right? And the story explains that the Bank of Guam has circulated a form to all of its depositors asking them to fill out this form if they want to remain customers of the bank. And, of course, I have the form, and I'll give you at least the highlights of it. And it says, the undersigned hereby acknowledges and represents as follows. B, customer is not directly engaged in a marijuana-related business which in any manner is involved with the handling of marijuana or marijuana-related products, including but not limited to the growing, cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, or selling of marijuana. Is it ours, Real Joe Cruz? No, okay. Marijuana-related products include any and all extracts or derivatives of the cannabis plant. Now, what about cannabidiol? Isn't that a derivative of the marijuana plant? It's not? Yes, it is. Yeah. So, and that's something that is swept over the country online all the time. There's all these ads for cannabis. They claim if you take a teaspoonful of it every day, you'll actually learn how to pronounce it correctly. Cannabidiol. Yeah. So if you are selling this cannabinol, or whatever it's called, then you perhaps aren't going to be able to deposit at the Bank of Guam. Something to think about. And, of course, if you're dealing with marijuana in any way, so, of course, I have to be a little bit curious here. Suppose that I run what used to be called a head shop. I wonder if there are head shops anymore. Do you know, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Are there?
Oh, there's plenty of them, sir. You want to go to some?
Are there some here, right here on Guam?
Yeah, there are.
Really? Yeah. Well, if I had a head shop, and I sold cigarette papers, would that bring me within the ambit of this form? Marijuana-related business, which in any manner is involved with the handling of marijuana or marijuana-related products. Gives you something to stop and think about, doesn't it? Yeah. And then the next item, no business of which I am a principal, officer, or employee, or any business of which I am a principal or officer is currently engaged in a marijuana-related business, which in any way handles marijuana or marijuana-related products, including but not limited to the growing, cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, or selling of marijuana, and all extracts or derivatives of the cannabis plant. And the next item, customer shall promptly notify bank if at any time any of the representations of this certification change or otherwise become inaccurate or untrue. And then the last item, if bank determines in its sole discretion that either customer, anyone employed by or affiliated with customer, is or becomes engaged in a marijuana-related business, or otherwise is involved with the handling of marijuana plant or marijuana-related products, bank has the right to immediately terminate any or all accounts associated with customer without prior or advance notice. Customer agrees to hold bank harmless from any such termination. Well, that's pretty heavy duty. So again, let's consider some hypotheticals here. If bank determines in its sole discretion that either customer or anyone employed with customer is or becomes engaged in a marijuana-related business, well, let's say that I run one of those head shops, and I've got someone who is really into cannabis, and he supplements his income by selling cannabis on his own. Is he in the marijuana business? Yeah. It gets pretty hairy pretty quick, doesn't it? So, I think I kind of have a responsibility here to bring these kind of uncomfortable facts to the attention of our international radio listening audience. I know it's a whole lot more fun to say, oh, yeah, grass is great. It's just not anywhere near as bad as alcohol. And people who don't understand that are just old and don't know what they're doing. And we should all just do it and don't worry about it.
Yup.
Yeah, well, that would be fine if, if you didn't live in the real world. Maybe in that world, that kind of reasoning works. But maybe not in the real world. I've mentioned before that there are problems with marijuana and insurance. Some insurance policies won't cover any particular claim if the business that's insured is breaking the law. And breaking the law could mean being in the marijuana business. Yeah, I know it's legal on Guam, but it's still against the law, against federal law. So there's that insurance dimension. And then, of course, if you're in the marijuana business, you can't deduct ordinary business expenses that you could deduct if you were in a legal business. You can deduct or you can expense the cost of goods sold, but maybe not capital improvements or the other things that you spend money on. You can spend if you buy marijuana for $400 an ounce and sell it for $600 an ounce, you wouldn't have to pay taxes on $600. But if your rent is $1,000 a month, you can't expense the rent because you are attempting to expense an illegal business. So it's just not all that easy because it is against the law. So, of course, the banks are subject to a couple of regulatory agencies, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. The Internal Revenue Service, of course, is interested in all of these things. And the bank doesn't want to get stuck in appearing to be in the money laundering business. That could be disastrous for a bank to be charged with money laundering. And obviously, the losses could be quite extreme. So I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I think I've got a caller that may shed a ray of sunshine on this matter. Right, Ray?
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
So I'm driving down and I heard you mention a key word. It's not even a word. It's an acronym, basically, that piqued my interest, and that is CCU.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know if anything happened at your house between 9 and 9:30 Saturday night, but at my house the power went out.
Yeah.
30 minutes. And so that's been going on. And I feel like sometimes we live in a third world country because I've lived in places and I've never experienced, they're not even brownouts. I don't know what they are. It's just a nuisance because when that happens, I have to reset some of my timers. You know, the stove shows power failure. The air conditioner shows power failure. But for me, that's an indicator and an assessment that we shouldn't be giving folks in the power authority raises because it seems like we live in a third world country when the power always goes out like that. It's such an irritant. I think maybe when these 30-minute power outages stop, maybe that's when we should consider giving them pay raises.
I hear you, Ray. And when you said your power went out on Saturday night, I was going to ask you, have you been critical of the CCU? Did they come and turn your power off to punish you? But I guess that wasn't it, huh?
Listen, it was the entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so I went up to the roof, and it's like it's just like that one area. And I was thinking maybe a transformer went out, and so maybe it's going to be more than 30 minutes. But no, I don't think it was a transformer because I think it would have taken more than 30 minutes for the power to come back on.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ray. I know what happened, and it's the next item on the card. And I can tell you who you can blame for that power outage on Saturday night, okay?
Sure.
The cat.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose just to show that we are at a little higher level of sophistication than a third world country, we no longer blame power outages on snakes. We've elevated the cause now to cats. So, you know, a snake is just, you know, a wild animal. It's a reptile, not anywhere near as high class as a cat. So I don't know that, you know, maybe that's our attempt to get out of the third world status, Ray. Now we blame power outages on cats.
Yeah, but my argument is that this is a regular occurrence. Why would I know? Because I have to reset my light.
Yeah.
Every time a power outage, and my air conditioner has PF on it, and my stove has PF on it, and it's a regular occurrence. It's like every month it happens.
Can't be that many cats, right, Ray?
Yeah. So do we have first-rate managers that are ensuring that doesn't happen, or what? Because I've lived in other places and I've never ever experienced even a brownout.
I hear what you're saying, so I guess I can sum up your call by saying you don't see giving managers large raises when we don't really have a workable power system, correct, Ray?
Yes, plus, you know, I heard that they deserve a power, they deserve a pay raise. Come on, you know, list reasons why, you know, that are quantifiable and that it's like there's no reason not to give it to them. But it's so vague to say they deserve it because they're at this level. What level, and what are they doing to get the customers what is needed?
I got you, Ray. Well, you're in a sense you're preaching to the choir. I've been kind of saying the same thing, but I share your frustration, Ray. Thanks for calling in.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. So again, I'm looking at Facebook out of the corner of my eye here, and let's see what I'm seeing here. Nate horns in and says power went out at RevTax around 4:30. Sounds like CCU is doing extortion for those raises. James Howard, sorry guys, it's going to be legal nationwide by. Oh, he's talking about marijuana. I'll skip that. Nate horns in again. Nice power, you got there. Should we be ashamed if something were to happen to you? And Nate Horn says, claim your damages with GPA. And Joe Cruz. Now, this isn't you, real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe Cruz. That everybody needs a nap today. You're probably right. I didn't get a chance to take my nap today, you know. When you're up here on the threshold of geezerhood.
You seem extra salty today, sir.
Yeah, I know. When you're up here in the right up here in the threshold of geezerhood, that nap really means a lot to you. You know how you know you're there, real Joe Cruz?
How, sir?
That you know that when early in the morning when your alarm clock goes off, you realize that the most enjoyable part of your day is now over. Yeah. Okay, well, enough about the bank and cannabis and related subjects here. Following up with Ray's lament, we're going to go straight to the next item on the card, which is called GPA versus the cat. And it starts out like somebody, some joke writer for some TV show wrote the opening paragraph here. You know how those jokes go? Two guys walked into a bar and...
Yeah.
Yeah, you've heard that around the joke. Two guys walked into a bar and the bartender put a monkey on them or something, some outrageous thing, right? But they always start out that way. Well, here's how this article starts. A cat walked into the GPA Tumon substation and, quote, came into contact with equipment. Causing Saturday night's power outage that affected several villages, General Manager John Beneventi said in a statement. I wonder who his writer is. A cat walked into the GPA Tumon substation and came in contact with equipment. The release includes photographs of the equipment and the cat. Now, if you're a cat lover, you may not want to look. You could look at the equipment, but you may not want to look at the cat. The outage occurred at 8:55, which caused a fault in the island-wide power system, according to the statement. Some customers had their power restored after 20 minutes. Some experienced a 2-hour outage. The last customer was restored at 10:59. Now, here's the explanation of what happened. The fault. Now, remember, the fault occurred when a cat walked into the GPA substation and came into contact with equipment. Impacting such a heavy power load center at that time caused a sequence of events within the power grid, Beneventi said. It must have been a big cat, maybe like a tiger or a lion or something like that. GPA's Machechi and Talafofo combustion turbine units tripped offline, followed by the Agreco units dropping to 2 megawatts, followed by the Cabras 2 baseload generator tripping offline, and GPA's MEC-9 unit to experience a high-temperature bellows rupture, requiring a reduction of generation output from 44 to 22 megawatts. Wow. That was just one cat. Just imagine what if the story read like this: a pit bull walked into the GPA substation and came into contact with. Wow, we'd have been in the dark for 2 days. Yeah, well, I'm going to take a short break here from this story and see what my friend Jimmy has to say. Good afternoon, Jimmy.
Oh, howdy. I just wondered. I'm glad it wasn't one of those big tom turkeys.
Yeah.
But maybe it was probably a tomcat.
Could be. Very well. Is our Tom line open, Real Joe Cruz?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm asking the Real Joe Cruz if our Tom line is open. I haven't seen or heard of any Toms here today. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, the tomcat died.
I suppose.
No, there's proof.
Okay.
Photographic proof.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
It maybe been a pussycat or maybe a tomcat. I don't know what kind of cat it was.
Yeah.
But some kind of cat.
Uh-huh.
And somebody was saying, this guy said wherever he lived, there had never been brownouts and.
He said his typical power outage is not a brownout; it's just the power dies.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But and he mentioned the third world twice.
Yeah.
And let's go statistics. As we all know, there's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. But I think the population of Guam is 30% Filipino. True? Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Well, sometimes they say 28, sometimes they say 31, but I don't know. The newspapers can't always believe what you read. So, you have a roughly 30% population comes from the Philippines, which is a very famous third world country. Very famous for corruption. Even their president's name rhymes with dirt. Dirty Duarte. Can I give you a quote?
Is it okay? Is it suitable for family radio listening audiences, Jimmy?
Well, I read it in the newspaper.
Well, it's probably arguably sufficient. Go ahead.
The president of the Philippines said, shoot them in the vagina. That's scientific, biological, whatever.
Okay, I got you, Jimmy.
It's a direct quote. Anyway, as long as you have the same people running the same place, you will have the same results, sadly. Anyway, I agree with you everything you and Kenyon Guerrero talked about.
Okay.
ICE is not nice. Anyway, I'll let you go. Sorry to bother you.
Thanks for calling, Jimmy. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay, so getting back to the dead cat, you know, there's a concept in investing called dead cat bounce. And if that applied to power generation, the power ought to come back, ought to go off and then come back on and then die again. Here's part of today's financial education. We're talking about dead cats, so I'm going to give you the definition of dead cat bounce as far as share prices are concerned. Dead cat bounce is a temporary recovery in share prices after a substantial fall caused by speculators buying in order to cover their positions. Here's an example. I quote, Is the recession really over, or is it a dead cat bounce? Well, in this particular case, power outage on Saturday night, I don't think there was a dead cat bounce, and I don't think much economy was involved, because I think the cat probably used up all of his 9 lives when he walked into that GPA Tuman substation. A cat walked into the GPA Tuman substation and came into contact with equipment. What a story. Okay, we're coming up here on the 7th inning stretch. The audience is grinning. That must mean we're winning. We debate, but we never kvetch. The time's running low, and soon we must go, but ere not the 7th inning stretch.
Travel the world and then some with the 2 million United Miles sweepstakes from First Hawaiian Bank. Enter and you could win the grand prize of 1 million miles or be one of 6 other lucky winners. The world is big. Our prize is bigger. Enter at fhb.com/2 million miles. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Sweepstake starts on May 1st and ends June 30th, 2019. Open to legal residents of Guam and CNMI. Ages 18 years or older. Visit 2millionmiles.com for official rules. First Hawaiian Bank. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
There are a lot of things a manager should never say to workers. We gave you some of them last week. And guess what? There's more. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we're back with what should not ever escape your lips.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
So that's the 7th inning stretch, and I like this this little poem so well from the poet Andrew, the poet laureate of Tall Tales. I'm going to read it one more time, but before I do, I've got to do a little interpretation here, some translation, because the word kvetch is important to understanding the poem. Kvetch, spelled Kvetch, is probably not part of your regular vocabulary. Is it real, Joe Cruz?
Yeah, I've heard it before.
But you don't use it much, right?
I don't use it often.
Yeah, and you don't kvetch much either.
Only when I'm kvetching.
Yeah, all right. So it's a Yiddish word, and it's a Yiddish word that in the verb form means complain. So it can be a noun. If it's a noun, it's a nagging complainer. So for instance, Ira's always kvetching about his wife's bad cooking. She is not so good. Ira is a kvetch. Okay, so now that you understand the word kvetch, it's not kvetch, but it's kvetch, right? The audience is grinning. That must mean we're winning. We debate, but we never kvetch. The time's running low, and so we must go, but not ere the 7th inning stretch. Not before the 7th inning stretch. We wouldn't miss the 7th inning stretch for anything. Now, there is somebody who has been part of the Tall Tales posse who has been missing the 7th inning stretch repeatedly. But because of his not attending the 7th inning stretch after being such a prominent part of it, I have issued a fatwa. Yeah.
Is that French?
No, it's Arabic.
Oh.
Something that an imam does. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, I have issued a fatwa. And that person that I'm referring to, I think you know who I mean. His name shall never pass our lips.
Oh.
until he signs in on Facebook again.
Wow.
But up until that time, his name shall never pass our lips.
Is that like excommunicado?
Well, it's probably worse because it's tall tales. Okay, so so much for the dead cat bounce and kvetching and related subjects here. Next I go to, gotta get my papers in order here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so next we go to a whole series of bouts dealing with the CCU. Starting out with the one that Ray will like. This is called see, I think I already did the cat, right? Yeah, I did the cat. So next on the card is CCU versus the rules. And the title here is CCU fails to follow executive evaluation policy. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities adopted a policy on performance evaluations for power and water executives in 2018. Commissioners haven't been following the policy. I'm glad you don't have a feather there, Real Joe Cruz, because you could knock me over with a feather. The CCU not following their own policies? Not following their own rules? But then on the other hand, if they don't follow the rules paid by the legislature, why would anybody think they'd follow their own rules? I guess the rules that really apply here are what are often referred to as jungle rules. Yeah. So this policy calls for the CCU to conduct performance evaluations on GPA and GWA general managers, chief financial officers, and general counsel at least once a year. Now, when it comes to general counsel, I think I can get to that tomorrow or maybe the next day because I got something to talk about the evaluation of general counsel. Going on, all commissioners are to take part in the evaluation, and the CCU may adopt any forms or format for the documentation of the evaluation. Now, the only form that they adopted was to meet in executive session, spend 43 minutes talking about salary, and then come out of the executive session and have Joey Duenas tell us, we can't let you listen to that recording because it's about evaluations. And I think I picked out 4 words that might have been evaluations. That's the closest they came. But it gave Joey Duenas a talking point as to why we shouldn't have the minutes for that meeting and why we shouldn't be able to listen to the recording. It was about evaluations. The evaluations have never been done annually. We haven't done it consistently, Joey Duenas said. We need to be better at it. But that policy we adopted, before that, we did it whenever we thought about doing it, and that's not the right way of doing it. So, you know, I check my oil whenever I think of it, or, you know, when my car stops running, one of the two, whichever comes first. If I don't happen to think about it, my engine might seize up because I'm out of oil, but, you know, if I don't think about it, what the heck? The commission hasn't been following its own policy on documentation either. Well, that's pretty easy to understand. If you don't have documents, there's nothing to provide, nothing to give up when nasty people serve you with FOIAs. It's one of those administrative things we say we want to do, but most of the time we're so busy doing so many things that we just don't get around to it. The CCU recently released executive session recordings from November 2018 meetings related to pay raises. The CCU has also released additional documents responding to Freedom of Information Act requests on the 2018 meeting. In the recording, commissioners can be heard discussing performance evaluations and how they've never conducted evaluations for general managers. Evaluations on general managers are essentially done verbally. Now, where's my blue pencil here? You know, if you don't do them verbally, you know how you do it, Real Joe Cruz?
With a pencil?
No, you do it with hand signals.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, verbally means with words.
Yes.
Right? That's what verbally means.
Yes.
So if they did them verbally, not a surprise, right? Yeah. Evaluations, let's see, are essentially done verbally with words. Now, the verbally could have been in writing, or it could have been orally. What's the difference between orally and verbally, Real Joe Cruz?
One is spoken and one is written?
Well, one is spoken, and the one just refers to using words
I see.
instead of sign language, or if you're the senator from Massachusetts, maybe smoke signals or something like that. I understand Elizabeth Warren doesn't communicate verbally. She sends smoke signals. Yeah. I can tell you, when you heard us talk about them and all the things we thought they did well, it's kind of like a compilation of all the meetings we go through with them, Dueñas said. Dueñas said the CCU is working to rectify these issues. He's going to rectify them. On Tuesday, Commissioner Mike Limtiaco motioned. There's no such verb as motioned. You can make a motion, you can move, but you can't motion something. Post-Guam, blue pencil here. The committee also will formalize the process for appointment, employment, and termination. All commissioners are part of the Rules Committee. The last month has kind of opened everybody's eyes to some procedural items we could probably fine-tune, Limtiaco said. Similar to legislative standing rules. It defines duties of elected officers. It defines rules and procedures. I think it's time we establish that. So kind of what the legislature does, causing me to wonder, you know, this has been on my mind for quite a while. Is Joey Dueñas laying the foundation to run for the legislature in 2020? He's the only member of the commission that hasn't served in the legislature. And usually you figure the way to get in the legislature is to have a lot of name recognition. And the best way to earn name recognition is what's called earned media. And Joey Dueñas has had more earned media in the last 3 weeks than anybody else on Guam. You can hardly pick up the paper without seeing Joey Dueñas' picture and name on the front page. So, you know, under the old slogan, there's no such thing as bad PR, I'm wondering, is it going to be, are we going to be thinking about a Senator-elect Joey Dueñas next year? Just curious. Then I've got the next item here is Dumb and Dumber versus the CCU. And this is really something. This is Joey Dueñas and Judy Guthertz kind of having an argument to say, the title of it is kind of Nobody Told Me. You know, nobody ever told me. And they're both extending themselves to show how uninformed they were about what they were. I didn't know. Nobody ever told me. And then they get on Simon, you know, I didn't know about that email. I didn't know. So just a couple of points here. Ignorance is sometimes can be used as a shield, but it should never be used as a sword. Okay, I'm going to go from there. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to Tall Tales versus the CCU. I got a call from Jim here. Good afternoon, Jim.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
Fine.
Yeah, well, first, motion can be a verb. He motioned me to come in. So motion can be a verb. But I agree with you.
Since when?
Well, look in the dictionary.
Okay, go ahead.
It can be a transitive or an intransitive verb, according to Webster. But that's beside the point. The reason I called is, we've been hearing so much criticism of the CCU, but I'd ask you to think back 20 years ago when we were having the load shedding blues. And I do think that the Power Authority has come a long way and is doing a lot better than it used to. And on top of that, I'd ask you to think about what's going on in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles. Over the weekend, there were several stories about Los Angeles now having bubonic plague, among other things, and typhoid, police officers being infected with typhoid. All things considered, I think we live on a pretty good island, and we got to cut people a little slack. Maybe the CCU hasn't done everything right, nice and neat, but I think they're making an effort, and what the heck. Be thankful we live here and not in Los Angeles.
Well, I'm very thankful for that. But as far as comparing now to 20 years ago, that was a regular element on Tall Tales. So I was one of the CCU's greatest supporters, making exactly that point, that things are so much better now than they were in the pre-CCU days. And I used to hold up the CCU as an example of the part of the government that ran pretty well.
Right.
Up until just recently, and they stepped in it, and they forgot about Will Rogers' law of holes. When you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. They kept digging, and because they kept digging, I'm not inclined to give them a whole lot of slack.
Well, and I think the way you've called them out, and also Ken Leon Guerrero, I think you've drawn their attention to some needs they have to correct things. And knowing Joey, knowing Simon, knowing Francis, I think they will take steps. Judy, they're not going to ignore the issues that you fellows have pointed out. But I think it's time to move on. The amount of criticism leveled on them, Cat fried the line Saturday. That's bad, but I don't think you can blame the CCU for a cat stumbling up there into a power station and causing an outage.
Well, I did attempt to blame the cat, but as far as the CCU is concerned, they still haven't responded to 2 FOIAs that I sent them. So if they're going to play hardball on the FOIAs or hide the ball or whatever, it's going to be pretty difficult for me to think about giving them slack, Jim.
Well, I know that you have a way of getting to people that don't respect the Freedom of Information Act, but, they're probably relying on their legal counsel to tell them how to respond.
Yeah, the 2 counsel that were in the meeting on November 27th didn't tell them, don't go into executive session to discuss salary.
Yeah, after they had been told that by another lawyer they employed.
Yeah.
But, be grateful for what we have, and let's move on.
Well, I'm grateful for what we have, but I'm not going to be moving on until I see complete compliance with the laws that the CCU is supposed to be complying with.
All right.
Okay.
All right. But I think they're moving in that direction, and I think you've put their feet to the fire, and it's the cat's meow.
The cat's meow. All right. Well, thanks for calling, Jim. It's always good to talk to you.
Good evening.
All right. Okay, so I'm not going to give the CCU any slack just yet. I'm going to go on to Tall Tales versus the CCU. Right after, as we're heading down the home stretch.
Let's go for a drive.
Let's take a stroll. Let's gallivant. Let's go cruising.
We all have different ways to describe how we get up and go in our cars. But whatever you may call it, you can do more of it when you save 6% off your fuel purchases at any Shell station when you use your eligible Bank of Guam Visa and MasterCard credit cards. So stop by any Guam or CNMI Shell station and start saving today. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, welcome to this Subway ad for the new club collection. How do you want it?
I'll take a book club.
Absolutely.
So, last week we sunk our teeth into Subway's meaty new release, the Steak Club.
I didn't finish it yet.
Oh, not again, Sandra. This week, it's the new Southwest Chicken Club, also by Subway. No spoilers, but there's a tasty twist.
Jalapeno cheddar bread and guacamole?
Sandra, get out. Subway, make it what you want.
Good ending.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Okay, so here we are heading down the home stretch at Churchill Downs, and the finish line here at our version of Churchill Downs, we recognize the first horse across the line as the winner, not the most polite horse. So, picking up on a story from last Friday, Rigel on utility raises, where Clint goes into his version of, or his interpretation of the recording of the CCU meeting, and he said it was like trick-or-treaters at Halloween. And he wound up by saying that the trick was on us. And I agreed. And when I finished that, I sat down and I uninstalled the nasty letter software in my PC and installed my statute drafting software. And I drafted something that I call the Salary Transparency Act of 2019, which, if it were the law, would occur at 12 GCA Chapter 2, because that chapter is vacant. And I put it all together, and Sunday night I sent it to all 15 of the senators. And my email transmittal said this: runaway boards and commissions such as the CCU, the Mayor's Council, and the GRTA have demonstrated that legislative oversight is required to ensure that all boards and commissions are in accord with the concepts of priorities, transparency, and frugality. It is for this reason that I respectfully submit the attachment. And my attachment is a letter. Honorable Senators, the recent closeted antics of the CCU as they provided exorbitant raises to GPA, GWA, Monocular cries out for action by you. I respectfully suggest a complete prohibition of discussion of anything even remotely related to salary increases in executive session, coupled with complete disclosure and a lay-before provision that would allow you to take such corrective action as you find appropriate. Please consider a bill along the lines of the Salary Transparency Act of 2019, as set out below. The legislative findings could consist of the Friday Post front page article entitled "Rigel on Utility Raises. The Trick is on Us." And I suggest the following as substance of the act. So this is what the act would provide: that if a board or commission, like the Mayor's Council with a $17,000 raise for Angel Sablon, and the GRTA for the substantial raise for Rick Augustine, those raises would be effective 90 days after adopted by the board or commission. And when the board or commission adopted the raise, it would have to send a resolution, the resolution adopting the raise, to the Speaker. And along with that resolution, they would also have to send a certificate signed as a declaration under penalty of perjury by the chair of the board. And the certificate must state that all aspects of the resolution provided by the salary adjustment were discussed and adopted in a properly called and noticed open and public meeting, a quorum being present and minutes being recorded. The certificate must show that the requirements of 5 GCA 8113.1 have been complied with. That's the section of the law that says that boards and commissions have to send their minutes and recordings to the public auditor, who will post them. And any attempt to do a salary adjustment without complying with the Salary Transparency Act would be void ab initio. So the way it would work, a board or commission decides that they want to give someone a raise. They do it with a resolution. They put it on their agenda. They have a discussion in open session of the whole thing, evaluations, numbers, whatever. And when they adopt the resolution, they send that resolution along with a certificate of the chairperson. Yeah, they have to send their certificate to the Speaker. And the certificate shows that it was all done in open session, and that copies of the resolution have been sent to and the recording have been sent to the public auditor. It then goes to the Speaker, and it lays before the legislature for 90 days. Now, of course, everybody in the legislature knows about it. I know about it. Ratepayers know about it. And if they attempted to do something like they did the last time, where they gave $25,000 bonuses, etc., then the legislature has the ability to introduce a bill to void that pay raise. And, of course, the bill would have a public hearing. And members of the CCU or whatever could come down and defend their salary increase, instead of doing it in executive session and then coming out and saying in 22 seconds saying, we adopt the raises. And then when people want to hear the recording or see the minutes, say, no, you can't see that, because the evaluations are personnel matters, and keep spinning that yarn. So this bill, if it became law, would put an end to all of that, and would protect us from runaway boards like those 3 boards. I sent it to all the senators Sunday night. So let's see what happens. Okay, well, it's good to be back in the saddle here at Tall Tales. Still got 4 more days this week. We'll see you tomorrow.